Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. The budget is in the air and we are having conversations surrounding some of the things that we need to be looking at. We are joined by President of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Kiran Singh. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Good day, Dike. It's always a pleasure to be on the show with you. And happy independence to the nation again as we celebrate 60 years.
Thank you so much, and same to you. I remember one family member was saying they didn't remember that the fireworks were so bright from the San Fernando Hill. But with that in mind, though, looking at the affairs of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, what are some of the things that the Chamber is really focusing on at this point in time?
Well, as we have post-pandemic situation right now, and as we head towards the Christmas season, the members of the business community in the southern region will looking to restock, retool, engage, and increase labor force to prepare for the upcoming busier seasons that typically characterize this period of our year, which is the Diwali season and, of course, the Christmas season. So we would have enough time to prepare for the influx of shoppers to downtown San Fernando. We already see an uptick in activity with school reopening on Monday. The business community is already engaged in those. We have, of course, an outflow of customers into other aspects of the retail sector, and the business community has been paying attention so that teachers will need to get new accessories, clothes, footwear. The ancillary staff of the various educational institutions will also be shopping on the streets, and this is welcome for business owners and, of course, managers, and especially those in the mom and pop type establishments who can now revive and resuscitate their businesses after being literally closed for 2+ years. So the business community is incentivizing. We are offering discounts, promotions at some of the stores to customers can avail themselves of specials that they're accustomed to in San Fernando, because we always say that San Fernando is the place to get the best deals in the country. So we look forward to that continued influx of visitors in the upcoming years, and of course in the upcoming days. And of course, we continue to have online webinars. Yes, we have started physical meetings with members of the business community to air their views on what affects them. And I'm sure we'll get into that as we get the discussion with respect to the budget and what are some of the limitations financially, physically, that impacts upon them, and we have to find solutions to act upon them aggressively.
And even before we get into some of those things that you would have just hinted at, Mr. Singh, when you talk about the membership of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, what does the membership look like? Because you spoke about different things in terms of mom and pops. I'm sure there are other types. So in the main, what does the membership look like?
We have a diverse membership, Dike, believe it or not. I know that what is Spain is very north-centric with respect to chambers of commerce, and when we hear about economic opinions on the business of Trinidad and Tobago. But San Fernando being the second city, we were once hailed as the industrial capital. We continue to have a lot to offer the economic landscape, financially, physically, and even spiritually and intellectually, of course. But what we have, of course, the primary membership base is retail, in the retail trade, of course, but we do have some members in manufacturing, agriculture, fisheries. So it is diverse. We capture a wide cross section. It is not really limited to downtown San Fernando. Our membership stretches to Chaguanas, to Mayaro, to Siparia. So of course, the majority of the members are in San Fernando, but we have some members that are increasing into our membership from those aspects who are businesses that have expanded, and also those who have decided to come into the San Fernando group because of the vision that we have, how they see us promoting their businesses nationwide.
And when you talk about the vision that you have, one of the things that I see in that vision is the way that icons, legends, sons and daughters of the soil in San Fernando and environs are being recognized at this point in time. You recently were at the renaming of a street. And is that a conscious something? Is that something that an effort that you're saying, okay, well, this is something that we are doing to honor those who have helped pave the way before us? Take me through that rationale.
But Dike, what we have recognized over the years is that when we look at the names of streets throughout Trinidad and Tobago, it's not isolated to San Fernando alone. There are a lot of names, then we wonder what is the special significance, what is the relevance of some of these names. And when we look at the historical background of the names of some of these streets, you realize they really have, in some cases, little or no significance. So for instance, the very topical street that was renamed recently, Short Street, the Shorty Eye.
I wasn't going to talk about it.
Short Street didn't have any relevance. It was really named Short Street because it was a short street. So certainly it was relevant to rename it to Shorty Eye Street. It bears a somewhat of a similar name. But what we do is, I think that it is important for us to recognize the icons, those have contributed to the development of Trinidad and Tobago in arts, culture, health, education, business, and so on. Even maybe a couple of years ago, the mayor had renamed Cuenca Street to Dr. Rupert Indar Street. And when we look at it, what was the relevance of Cuenca Street? Nobody knows. That was some clerk or a very insignificant person while we were under British rule. And we renamed, for instance, Sprangalang. Sprangalang got recognition. The mayor has embarked on an aggressive drive to honor patrons, patriots of our society. And we should do this while they are living. Unfortunately, some of them have passed on and they didn't get to positively view that the society has recognized them. They have benefited from what we have offered to them. But we continue to support this initiative. I think it adds to the pride of Trinidad and Tobago that we must engender, we must encourage. Because youth especially, I did see some remarks and they were asking, who's James Lewa? And when we look at who's James Lewa, he's a very significant man in San Fernando. He stopped the quarrying of San Fernando Hill. He was the one to embark on the initiative to create the Gulf City Bridge, to create that link between South Trunk Road and Lady Hills Avenue. We all know him for being the drama man, the activist in creating the San Fernando Theatre Workshop and various other initiatives in the culture group, but he's also well known as an activist. And a lot of people don't know that. So when we put this up, it generates a conversation as to who are these people. So the youths will go into online and look up, well, who's James? And realize, oh, this man did all these things to develop San Fernando and indirectly impacted positively on the entire landscape of Trinidad and Tobago, where we all recognize his talent. He studied this as a youth. I was fortunate enough to be a student of his while at Naprima College and learn from his expertise, his knowledge, his experience. And we also rename other streets, Bobby Mohammed, Professor Ken Fillmore, Lyrical East, so that this will remain forever in the history books of Trinidad and Tobago, that our legends are there forever in front of our eyes. So every day we pass and you will tell your children, well, Sprangalang was a cultural icon. He was a stand-up comedian, he was a singer, and all the other facets that accommodated him. And Bobby Mohammed, being a serious pan man, took us to Port of Spain. We have all these things to boast about. Okay.
I'm really grateful that we're having this conversation now, because even though I knew some aspects of the work that James Lewa had done, I didn't know that part about he was the one who really help to stop that quarrying. I have a
Yes.
grandfather who used to look at the San Fernando Hill and just look and say, what they do in God creation.
Yes.
But I didn't know that aspect. So I'm grateful we're having this conversation. Now, when we continue this conversation on the other side of the break, stay with us. We'll return with more. Welcome back. We are going in depth on a conversation with the president of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, Kiran Singh. And in terms of that vision that you were talking about before, Mr. Singh, looking at honoring our icons, our legends, especially while they're still alive, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is those three big projects that are taking place at this point in time in San Fernando and environs in terms of the waterfront, Skinner Park, and the family court. What's the thrust behind them? Are you happy with the work that you're seeing being done at this point in time? Let me know your view.
Dike, this is so excellent for San Fernando. You know, when we formed the San Fernando Chamber of Commerce some years ago, one of the reasons, the foundation, the pillar for creating this organization was to highlight the concerns coming out of San Fernando, that San Fernando was largely ignored. Port Spain had this bright, shiny waterfront. Everybody boasts about it. Chagaramas has a nice boardwalk. And when you go to these areas of Trinidad, you would see half of the visitors there are from South. I thought it was more than enough time that, and the members of the business community have been championing the cause that we should get some attention. And now I'm proud to say that San Fernando is now the mecca of government expenditure in the country. If you look at a holistic figure in terms of the money being spent right now out of the government coffers, it is in the southern region. And we have to be thankful to the vision, the authorities that, you know, after so many decades, successive different governments spoke about developing the San Fernando waterfront, and it never got off the ground. We are finally seeing the first phase of the waterfront almost complete. This work has been done practically Sunday to Sunday. And with the MP, now the Minister of Local Government, has been championing that cause to ensure that the road widening network is completed in the fastest time possible. I don't think it will be open for the school on Monday, but certainly I think very soon we will see that dual carriageway being open to alleviate the traffic congestion that comes in and out of San Fernando. It is a perennial argument with the residents, with business owners, with customers. They can't get into the city, they can't get out. There's always a long line of traffic. And that certainly is going to be eased up very soon. I literally pass there every day. I see that work is going on. The Skinner Park project, I think, is about 75% complete. That is another mega project where the youths will get themselves off the block, get into sporting activities. We have so many proud, we have to be so proud of the talent that has developed in South, starting with, not just starting, but Hazley Crawford and other youths with the athletics that we had recently. And these guys, we honor them, and we must have the proper training grounds for them. And instead of the youths going and partying on the street, they can use the sporting ground, a safe environment within an enclosed environment to practice their social activities instead of endangering lives and traffic on the road and having to engage police attention. And it doesn't set like a precedent to even the younger folk to see what example is being set by the elders. We have to quell this thing before it gets out of control. Luckily, in that incident, no one was seriously injured. There were no fatalities, because these things can quickly generate out of control. And that is one of the reasons for this regeneration of Skinner Park. It was left abandoned for literally over 100 years. And again, we must say it was large part to the MP and of course the mayor input to ensure that this project got off the ground, is going full speed ahead. And the family court has started, and we see the groundwork being done aggressively. So we look forward to the completion of that, as well as the magistrates court. Things are happening in San Fernando. San Fernando is becoming very exciting. We see shopping returning to High Street. There were complaints that High Street was somewhat quiet. for some time. Of course, the pandemic and slowdown of the economy, closure of Petrotrain and other exogenous factors have caused that. But we see a return to retail activity, and that is a positive sign for us. It's an encouraging sign for business investment in the southern region. And we don't see that attention in the rest of the country, and we're happy for that. Come back to San Fernando. Our tagline is bringing business back to San Fernando, Dike.
And bringing business back to San Fernando. And I think I want to put in a plug in the same way that you would have spoken about engaging the youth and making sure that they're on the right track. I don't know was totally the scene with the Sea Scouts that are on the right on the walk, but just asking that be something a point of attention as well. But in terms of bringing business back to San Fernando, in terms of the investment, we are very close to the budget. What are some of the things that you as president, the chamber in and of itself, are looking forward to, focusing on, hoping to see in that budget as it will be read by the Minister of Finance?
Well, Dike, the budget, the financial appropriations bill is one of the hot ticket items in any parliamentary calendar. So we all look forward to this every year as to what the Minister of Finance will bring. And we could start in alphabetical order. And the main topical issue that should be addressed, and I'm sure it will be addressed, is agriculture. We talk about it, and again, decades. We always talk about giving more resources to the agricultural industry, incentivizing entrepreneurs to get into agribusiness. And there's been a lot of talk, but recently we saw where the private sector got involved physically. We saw actual booths being displayed of different entrepreneurs in cocoa, coffee, wine, chocolates, soap at Gulf City Mall, under the umbrella of Southex. And of course, the San Fernando Chamber was in full support of that, where the business community was able to come and display their goods. Different ministers of government came and supported this initiative, which was just recently, where it got a lot of media attention. And it highlights again the need for agricultural impetus into the economic landscape of the country. And the government, of course, just a couple of weeks later, had their own huge expo in Port of Spain. And again, a lot of Southerners were involved in that activity, where we saw the ministers of government come in and supporting the initiative. It was a good initiative by the government to show that I think finally we're getting more serious about agriculture, because both the private sector and the public sector held their own expos and were able to highlight a lot of the business, a lot of opportunity that can be created within the agricultural sector. We have the hydroponics, which is exciting for the youths. Weather is terrible. It's either hot sun or rain. And hydroponics is certainly a way to go. It's an inexpensive way to get into agriculture for short-term crops that can generate income. And the good thing about agriculture is that it can be a net foreign exchange earner. Tobago used to be the food basket of the region. That is no longer so, unfortunately. And I understand there's a pest problem in Tobago that I'm sure can be dealt with the technology that we have. So for instance, peas and grains that were in abundance in Tobago is under some challenge. If I remember correctly, I heard the Honorable Prime Minister talking about that as well. And I think that with the animal husbandry that he is championing in Tobago as well, that we can see some increase in agricultural output, because we have to feed ourselves, Dike. It's just impossible. We cannot continue to import the level of goods to consume. We have a foreign appetite that has to be curbed. Our mantra from the Chamber, Dike, is grow local, buy local, eat local. We have to move away from these foreign commodities.
And in terms of moving away from those foreign commodities, you raise an interesting point, and one that I've been a little more interested in as of late. The fact that, are we at a tipping point? Are we at this stage where we see that it makes more sense to do this together in terms of private interest, public interest, governmental policy? I mean, there will always be individual ways that groupings do their things, but a concerted effort to do things together, what kind of significance do you see for that, Mr. Singh?
Well, Dike, we always say from the San Fernando Chamber that We live here together. We have to work together. So certainly we should do business together. It's a natural progression of how we will progress as a society. The government can't be doing something on its own and the private sector trying to do something on its own. It will never work. We must collaborate. We must have a cohesive relationship where we can exchange ideas, we can sit around the table, put progressive thoughts into action and move this train forward. The agricultural train has to move forward and the ease of doing business has to be improved. A lot of companies, unfortunately, we hear stories ever so often about a company picking up, packing up, locking up, and moving out. And Guyana is a very strong competitor for investment in our region now, with the huge influx of huge finds of oil and gas and so on. They will take away that potential investment. So when the government went to Guyana, invited them, and we are now shaking hands with them, I think that's a positive sign. We can exchange certainly our energy labor as an example, which is lying idle for the last couple of years because of the slowdown of the energy sector in Point Lisa, Petrotrin, worldwide, of course. Until we get the renewables into the energy sector, we know that the government has zero-rated taxes on agricultural inputs, but maybe we need to look at some sort of grant funding to assist young entrepreneurs to get into the agricultural sector while we focus in on the renewables. We have a manufacturer in South Trinidad, actually, who is into solar panels, importing accessories to remove the dependence on electricity. We have to remove our dependence on fossilized energy and get into renewables. The sun is free.
And all of that, Jan, you're saying is making perfect sense. And I'm going to, you say remove dependence, but I'm depending on you to say yes when I ask to have another conversation in a shorter period of time, because it's been too long since we've spoken. But I want to thank you very much, Mr. Singh, Mr. Kiran Singh, President of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the entire news team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth. Thank you so much for joining us.